All right, everyone, it's time for Vermont Issues, episode 31. Governor Phil Scott attacking Trump over his Charlottesville comments. Phil, once again, as with the marijuana debate and almost everything else under the sun, I know you prefer racing stock cars to actually governing properly. I know that you're extremely morbidly concerned about what goes on outside of this state as opposed to the problems that happen within the state, and you want to grandstand on a national level for some reason. But you're being wrong. It's totally wrong. Trump's initial reaction to Charlottesville was, hey, I condemn hate and violence. If that's propping up or supporting neo-Nazis or fanning the flames of hate, as you say, then I guess most people in the country are fanning the flames of hate. Look, how does that cause more hate to condemn hate? And that's some newspeak nonsense mumbo-jumbo if I ever heard it, so I don't know what Phil Scott's talking about. And this isn't the first time that Scott's weighed in on national issues and seems like... I don't mind the fact that he's obviously not a partisan Republican, because I'm not a partisan and I'm not a Republican anyway, so I don't really care about that. I can understand perhaps it's partially pragmatic, because of course he's reigning over Vermont where it's majority Democratic partisans. So I can understand that from a career move perspective, but don't sit there morally grandstanding and pretending that you actually believe what you're saying right now. A sane individual looking at Trump's comments on the situation would not say that he's fanning the flames of hate. They would say he's saying, oh, you know, hate is condemnable. Only if you presume, you assume that Donald Trump has bigoted views. Does it make sense to say, oh yeah, he's standing with these neo-Nazis? And by the way, who cares about the response of the people on the Daily Stormer or any of these other sites when they say, oh, we're glad about Trump's comments, they're really helpful? Who cares what they think? They're like, the people there are the fringe of white supremacists in this country. They're not playing with a full deck, Phil. So you're essentially... I guess Phil Scott and the Democrats in this country and the Marco Rubios and Ted Cruz's, you're agreeing with the assessment of the situation given by groups like the Daily Stormer right now. You do realize that that's what you're doing. As opposed to standing with people who are saying, oh, maybe we should all cool down and take a look at this situation for what it really is and not be all panicky and start thinking about jackboots roving through the streets. We have a problem right now with social alienation in this country. Part of that is far right. Part of it's also far left. Both sides now are overextending, making life miserable for everybody that gets caught in the middle, especially online, to the point at which a lot of people, you can see this quite visibly, a lot of people, unless they're already on the lunatic fringe, they're no longer even really covering political issues. They've backed off and started to analyze other things. Now, I'm intellectually honest enough to keep talking about them, because, of course, my perspective has been inherently pro-liberty for the last decade. I'm a libertarian of a sort, although I can't really lump myself into that actual category. I consider myself, generally speaking, a monarchist, but I'm sure I'd find plenty of things to disagree with other self-proclaimed monarchists on. I want small government, no abuse, state should be constrained, people should be able to speak freely, actions are different than words, words themselves are not violence unless they incite it. That's the angle I'm going from, it's the angle I've been going from. Depending on what period of time you're talking about, that either aligned me with liberals, or with the new right, although not the alt-right, or now neither of the above, because the left and right have gone crazy in this country. Now, Phil Scott's more of a centrist individual. Oddly enough, he takes up the more right-wing tack on something like marijuana legalization, where he should be swinging over way to the other side, like Vermont should be on the forefront of something like that. He was sitting there worrying about, you know, the plight of Canadians in regards to the immigration debate. Oh, the poor Canadians, they're not going to want to travel to Vermont. Okay, Phil, we get it. Vermont is a little bit different from most of the country. We do things a little bit differently here. But that doesn't, the average person in this country doesn't even know you exist. They don't know that Vermont exists. Most people can't find us on a map. Why do you think that you weighing in on this situation is really going to change anything? especially when the way you weigh in on it is totally dumb. Trump's not fanning the flames of hate. He's actually trying to suppress both sides of the fringe. He's done so slightly successfully by injecting the term alt-left into the public lexicon, where before it had been primarily on the internet. That's actually a good thing right now for the country because it allows criticism to be levied at fringes on both sides, to suppress them both in a more even-handed manner, or to back off and let them, air their fringe grievances. That's the way to go forward. The way to go forward is not to say, oh, evil, despicable Nazis, when you're lumping in groups that are quite clearly not white supremacists in with those groups, calling them fanatics as well. Meanwhile, alienating them, emboldening the far left, which is also violent, Phil. I don't know if you understand this quite enough. I'm starting to think Phil Scott really needs to be recalled as governor, because the way in which he's governing is not acceptable. I think the majority of people in this state would rather him focus on, hey, there are problems in the state of Vermont. We've got an opiate epidemic. What about marijuana? Leave the stock cars alone for a while and actually do your job and stop weighing in. You're not a national level politician. You're the governor of the state of Vermont. Your job is within state. Insofar as something directly impacts us, yeah, weigh in all you want. Charlottesville is in Virginia. It's a little bit of a different situation. You can give your moral concerns all you want, but you're not involved really with the situation. You have a statewide reach. You don't have an international reach like some of us do. And it's proper for us to be weighing in on these situations around the world and around the country, certainly. It's not really proper for you to fixate so much on these other issues that you begin ignoring your duties as a state governor. It's just not necessary for you to do that. And nobody's going to take it seriously anyway. You've simply joined the chorus of Marco Rubio and Nancy Pelosi on this issue, and you're wrong. What you're saying is false. I can look at Trump's Twitter right now and see directly what he said about Charlottesville in the immediate aftermath of it. He's condemning hate and violence. What more do you exactly want him to do? What more can he do? You've been taken in by propaganda coming from the corporate media that wants to fixate on one side as opposed to fixating on all fringe sides in order to drive moral panic for its own dishonest, ill-gotten gain, which is ad revenue, it's clickbait. It's quite literally corporate propaganda. Apparently, you either believe it or you're willing to go along with it for political reasons. How very sad that our state's being led by such a weak-wristed individual at a time like this. Now, we deserve better in the state of Vermont, I think. You need to go back, I guess, to you're better at stock car racing than you are at being the governor of this state. That's about all. Peace out.